What does a woman know about cars anyway? The grease-covered wrench in my hand trembled. This wasn't my place, but I couldn't run. It all started a year and a half ago, on that summer day. 6 a.m. The cold Chicago air cut through my clothes. A single bike stood in front of Johnson's Auto Repair. My name is Mia Smith. I'm 17. I should have been in a classroom, laughing with friends about something stupid. But my reality was a pair of oil-stained coveralls. My heart felt cold and small. The metal shutter screeched as it rolled up. It was a signal, the signal for the yelling to begin. "Hey, slowpoke, stop standing around and get to work." The voice belonged to Robert Johnson, 46 years old, the veteran mechanic who ran this place, and the man who made my life a living hell. I flinched. My voice was barely a whisper. "Yes, sir." This had been our morning ritual for 8 months. I was numb to the pain by now. Johnson knew I was always the first one here. But he didn't care. He just needed a reason to be cruel. Like a little girl like you could ever understand what's inside an engine. The other mechanics just watched. A few of them had nasty little smirks on their faces. I bit down hard on my back teeth. I swallowed the words that wanted to scream out. "You're wrong," I thought. What my dad taught me. It was real. But I couldn't say it. If I got fired from this place, my little brother Liam and I would be on the street. So today, like every other day, I followed the humiliating orders. "You're on toilet duty. You won't be touching an engine for 100 years. "Yes, sir, I understand." I lowered my head. My pride was gone. I'd thrown it away a long time ago. I would do anything to make sure my brother could survive. A year and a half ago, I was just a normal high school student. I was the star of the basketball team. I was faster than anyone on the court. The state championship semifinals, the squeak of sneakers on the polished floor, the rhythmic thump of the ball. I loved it all. I could hear my parents cheering from the stands, pushing me forward. My 12-year-old brother Liam was at home that day. He was pouting about something stupid. "I'm not going to your stupid game," he'd said. The game ended with my last-second shot, a dramatic win. "You did it!" My parents gave me a high five. That was the last time I felt their warmth. "Hey, can I go to the victory party with my friends?" "Of course. Just don't get too crazy." That was the last conversation we ever had. During the party, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Hello? This is the police. There's been an accident involving your family." In that instant, all the sound in the world disappeared. A car had crossed the center line. A head-on collision. Liam stood next to me, holding his breath. He didn't understand death yet. "When are Mom and Dad going to wake up?" I couldn't answer his innocent question. I just pulled his small body closer and held him tight. After the funeral, our relatives gathered at the house. And that's where my life was thrown into an even deeper darkness. "So, what are we going to do with these two?" My aunt started it. There was no sympathy in her voice. We don't have the space or the money." "We can't take them either. Things are tight enough as it is. We were like unwanted luggage." I bit my lip, trying to hold back the anger. "Your parents were always so irresponsible. 2 kids and no savings." "Exactly. That's why they get into accidents. They must have been careless." Those words, they snapped something inside me. "Please stop." My voice was quiet, but it was strong. "Don't you dare talk about my parents that way." My aunt just scoffed. "Don't you talk back to me, you little brat? Who do you think is going to take care of you?" I put my arm around Liam, who was trembling with fear. These people weren't family anymore. They were vultures. "We don't need your help." I said it clearly. "We'll survive on our own. I will not be lectured by people who insult my parents." I said it with finality. "We'd rather starve on the street." I squeezed Liam's small hand, and with a resolve I never knew I had, I walked out of that house, knowing I would never come back. 3 days later, I was in the principal's office. I placed the school withdrawal form on my teacher's desk. "Are you serious, Mia? The championship game is next week." My coach's voice was shaking. "The scholarship isn't enough. I have to take care of my brother." I wanted to scream. I wanted to be on that court more than anything. But I swallowed those feelings down. "Basketball is in the past now." I nodded respectfully. I wouldn't be going back to the gym. My teammates were waiting in the hallway. They were all speechless. "Mia," someone whispered my name. "Good luck in the finals." That's all I said before I turned my back on them. I walked out of the school gates. I swore I would never return. First, I needed a job. The image of my father came to mind. He was a mechanic. I found a small shop in Chicago, Johnson's Auto Repair. The ad said they had a history of hiring people without a diploma. That one sentence was my lifeline. The interviewer, Robert Johnson, sneered when he saw my application. 17 and a high school dropout, huh?" His stare made me sick, but I had no other options. "I'll work hard. Please, give me a chance." Johnson stroked his chin. "Well, we are short-staffed. The pay is $800 a month. If you don't have a problem with that, you're hired." "Yes, thank you so much. I can survive. My brother and I can make it." That relief made me thank him again. I didn't hear the gates of hell slowly creaking open. From the very first day, I was treated worse than an animal. "Hey, Smith." Johnson was holding a rusty bolt. "Polish this. That's an order. But this part can't be used anymore. Your job is to make it usable." He kicked a huge pile of rusted metal parts at my feet. "I want these shining by sunrise. Overtime? You think you get paid for overtime?" It was completely unreasonable, but I just silently started working. My fingers started to bleed, the skin peeling off. But I wasn't allowed to stop. One day, they'll see my value. I just have to endure it. I grit my teeth and kept polishing. 2 months passed, my first payday. I opened the envelope, my hands trembling. I looked inside. The blood drained from my face. $350. Excuse me, this is... "You got a problem?" Johnson glared at me. "The interview. You said $800. That was before your trial period. Besides, you've caused some damages." Damages? I had no idea what he was talking about. "You broke a tool the other day because you handle things so carelessly." It was a lie. My father taught me that a mechanic's tools are their life. I was more careful with them than anyone. "The repair cost $150. I'm taking it out of next month's pay." I couldn't argue. If I lost this job, Liam would be on the streets. One evening, I was sweeping the front of the shop. I heard familiar laughter. "That new cafe downtown is supposed to be amazing?" It was my old classmates. One of them noticed me and froze. "Mia?" My work clothes were covered in grease and sweat. I didn't want them to see me like this. I looked down. The cheerful mood instantly turned cold. Their eyes, a mix of pity and confusion, felt like needles. "Hey!" I could barely get the word out. I couldn't look up. "Yeah." The silence was painful. One of them forced a smile. "Well, we gotta go. See you around. Take care." They practically ran away. I watched them until they were gone, and then I bit my lip. I fought back the tears that were threatening to fall. They were laughing, falling in love, living normal lives. I was the only one left behind in a different world. When I finally got home, Liam was waiting for me at the door. "Hey, sis, how was school?" "Fine." His face fell slightly. I knew something was wrong. He must have been teased at school about our money problems, but I didn't have the energy to ask. I was already at my breaking point. Then, one evening, an event that would change my fate was quietly approaching. I was outside the shop, doing a final inspection on a car. That's when I heard it. A high-pitched, metallic screeching sound. It was coming from an old black sedan waiting at the traffic light. That sound. It wasn't just worn brake pads. The knowledge my father had drilled into me was screaming a warning in my head. Listen to the car. Sometimes it can save a life. The metallic sound was getting louder. A crack in the master cylinder. If so, brake fluid was leaking. Eventually, the brakes would fail completely. "Hey, Smith, what are you just standing there for?" Johnson yelled from inside the shop. "That car. There might be a fatal flaw in the brakes. If it keeps going, don't get involved. Look the other way." She's not our customer." The light turned green. The sedan began to move slowly. A flashback of my parents' accident from a year ago seared through my mind. "I'm sorry." I threw down my tools and started running. "Hey, get back here!" Johnson's angry shouts echoed behind me, but I didn't stop. Luckily, the car stopped at the next light. I knocked on the window. "Excuse me." The window rolled down. Inside was an elegant woman, probably in her 70s. "Yes, can I help you?" "I'm from Johnson's Auto Repair." I was out of breath, but I explained what I heard. "There's a strange noise coming from your car. Your brakes could fail. It's dangerous." The woman looked at me with suspicion. I couldn't blame her. A strange girl covered in grease had just appeared out of nowhere. "It's true. Please believe me." I was desperate, as I used every bit of knowledge my father had passed down, explaining the symptoms. "Please, just let me take a look." Something in my earnest eyes must have convinced her. She nodded silently and pulled the car over to the side of the road. 7 minutes. That's all you have. "Thank you." I ran back to the shop, grabbed a small toolbox, and returned. I slid under the car. A small light confirmed my fears. A hairline crack in the brake master cylinder. Brake fluid was slowly seeping out. "This is bad. If you keep driving, your brakes will fail for sure." I immediately started a temporary fix. A proper repair was impossible without the right equipment, but I had to make sure she could at least get to the nearest garage safely. The old woman watched my hands, her eyes wide. She saw a skill that was far beyond my years. But 25 minutes later, the work was done. "This is just a temporary patch. You need to get to a professional shop right away," I explained as I wiped the sweat from my forehead. "There's no charge. A life is worth more than that. Please be careful." The old woman stared at my face. It was dirty with grease and sweat, but my eyes were clearer than anyone she'd ever met. "What is your name?" "Mia Smith." "I'll remember that. Thank you. Truly." She nodded respectfully and slowly drove away. As I watched her go, I felt a small sense of pride. I had used the skills my father left me to save someone. The moment I returned to the shop, Johnson was waiting for me, his face a mask of rage. He grabbed my arm and slammed me against the wall. "You little brat, using our tools without permission. And for a free repair? You think this is a charity? That's a $200 fine. I'm taking it out of next month's pay. You got a problem with that?" I wouldn't be able to survive. That fear consumed me. I fell to my knees, my head bowed. "I am so sorry." For Liam, I could throw away my pride as many times as I needed to. 10 days later. The air in the shop was strange. Johnson and the other mechanics were all smiling. A cruel, nasty smile. I had a bad feeling. "Smith, my office, now." I followed him. On his desk was an expensive-looking car part, a turbocharger. "This was in your locker. Care to explain?" "That's a $3,000 piece of equipment." Johnson pointed at it with dead eyes. I checked the inventory. "We're missing one." I couldn't breathe. The blood drained from my face. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "I saw you go into the parts room last week." I searched my memory. Yes, I had gone in there to clean. "I saw her too." Another mechanic chimed in with a wicked grin. "Saw Smith sneaking something out." "That's not true." My voice cracked. Johnson took a step closer to me. "Conveniently, the security camera was broken. So, what should we do? Should I call the police?" It was a trap. It had all been a setup from the beginning. A theft conviction, a high school dropout. Who would ever hire me after that? Liam's face flashed in my mind. Our life together would end here. "What do I have to do?" "Beg," Johnson spat. "Get on your knees and beg for my forgiveness. If you do, I'll just deduct the $3,000 from your pay in installments. Consider it a mercy." It was a nightmare, but I had no choice. I could hear them laughing at me. Slowly, I sank to my knees. I could hear the sound of my pride shattering into a million pieces. I was about to lower my head, just for a moment. "Stop right there!" A commanding voice echoed through the grease-stained office. Everyone's eyes shot to the doorway. Standing there was the old woman I had helped. She was wearing a high-quality suit, with a man who looked like an assistant standing behind her. "You—" Johnson was flustered. The woman calmly took out a business card. "My name is Elizabeth Vanderbilt. I am the chairwoman of Vanderbilt Parts Manufacturing Incorporated." The air in the office froze. They were Johnson's Auto Repair's biggest, no, their only major client. "Madam Chairwoman." The color drained from Johnson's face. "This young woman is a hero who saved my life last week." Vanderbilt's calm voice filled the room. She looked directly at the terrified Johnson. "She was the only one who noticed a fatal flaw in my brakes that all of your veteran mechanics missed. Because of her, I am standing here today," Vanderbilt continued. "She also saved the irreplaceable car my late husband left me." Her gaze shifted to me, still on my knees. "So why is my hero on the floor, about to beg for forgiveness?" No, you see, this girl, she stole a part," Johnson stammered. "You accuse an employee of theft without any proof? It seems we need to reconsider our business relationship." Johnson's knees began to tremble. If he lost this contract, Johnson's Auto Repair would be bankrupt by tomorrow. Vanderbilt extended a hand to me. "Please, stand up. You've done nothing wrong." I slowly lifted my face. My vision was blurry with tears. Finally, someone believed me. Finally, I had an ally. "Thank you." I took her hand and stood up, but in the next moment, "But it's okay." I let go of her hand and once again knelt on the floor. "What?" Vanderbilt's eyes widened. Johnson and the others were stunned by my unexpected action. "I'm sorry, but this is my problem." I bowed my head low. A dark spot of tears spread on the dirty floor. I decided that I would survive on my own. The memory from a year ago came flooding back. The day my relatives surrounded me and insulted my parents. I swore I would never rely on anyone. After my parents died, no one had offered me a hand. "So I will handle this myself." My voice was shaking, but it was filled with a steely resolve. But this is completely unjust. Your kindness is more than enough. Thank you, truly. I turned to face Johnson. I'm sorry. I will pay for the part. Vanderbilt stared at my profile. She saw the painful pride of a 17-year-old girl. She understood that it was a strength born from deep despair. I understand. I will respect your decision, Vanderbilt said quietly. Then she pierced Johnson with an icy glare. But there will not be a second chance. If anything like this happens again, our contract is terminated immediately. Vanderbilt nodded to her assistant, Charles Morgan, and quietly left the shop. After she was gone, the atmosphere in the office twisted again. Johnson's rage, now with nowhere else to go, was focused entirely on me. You almost ruined my business, you little witch. Hell had begun. I'm going to get every last cent of that $3,000 back from you. Johnson whispered it to me every day, like a snake. My day started at 4 a.m. and ended at midnight. There were no breaks. My body was long past its limit, but I couldn't collapse. For my brother, Liam, just to survive. I killed my emotions and worked like a machine. One night, I came home exhausted to our small apartment. Liam was in his bed, crying silently. His small back was shaking. What's wrong? I asked gently. Liam looked up. The final payment for the school trip is due. It's $300. His voice was full of resignation. We can't pay it, can we? I'm sorry. The weight of that amount crushed me. It's okay. I know you're working so hard for me, sis. My brother was only 14. I couldn't forgive myself for making him say those words. I held him tight. If this continued, I would break his spirit too. I have to work harder, harder. That was the only thought that drove me. The next morning, I tried to wake up at 4, as usual, but my body wouldn't move. I had no strength in my arms or legs. When I tried to sit up, the room started spinning violently. This is bad. I have to get to work. I forced myself up. The moment I stood, my vision went black. The next thing I knew, I was lying on the cold floor. Mia! I could hear Liam scream from far away. My consciousness was fading. Liam? I'm sorry. And then everything went dark. When I woke up, I was staring at an unfamiliar white ceiling. I was in a hospital bed. Extreme malnutrition and exhaustion. The doctor's words were as cold as ice. If you continue like this, you could die. You need to be admitted. You need absolute rest for at least 10 days. I can't. I tried to sit up. My job, my brother. Don't move! A nurse gently pushed me back down. Just then, the door to my room opened. Liam ran in. Mia! Huge tears streamed from his eyes. It's my fault. Because of me, you... No. I summoned my last bit of strength and took his hand. It's not your fault, Liam. We're family. We're in this together. Liam looked down and said in a small voice, I'm going to go to a group home. My heart stopped. Then you won't have to work so hard, right? I've already decided. I don't want to make you suffer anymore. The decision my 14-year-old brother had made all by himself. It was all my fault. No! For the first time, I cried out loud. I don't want to be apart. My pride, my stubbornness, it all crumbled away. What do I do? Dad? Mom? Help me. But there was no one left to answer. I was all alone in the world. Somebody, please, help me. My faint voice echoed in the quiet hospital room. In that moment, I made a decision. I would throw away my pride. For Liam, I would do anything. I pulled the IV needle out of my arm. On trembling legs, I got out of bed. "Where are you going?" I ignored the nurse's protests. I had to ask for help. Leaning against the wall, I staggered out of the hospital. There was only one place to go. The towering headquarters of Vanderbilt Parts Manufacturing, Inc. I had to ask Elizabeth Vanderbilt for help. The sky was covered in heavy, dark clouds. It looked like it was about to cry. I walked with everything I had. My knees buckled over and over, but I kept moving forward. I saw the giant glass building. I went to the reception desk. "I need to see the chairwoman, Elizabeth Vanderbilt." The receptionist looked at my ragged appearance and frowned. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but—" "Then I'm afraid I can't let you in." Her cold voice cut through me. My spirit was about to break. But I couldn't give up. For Liam. I went back to the building's entrance. It had started to rain. Cold drops hit my body without mercy. I stood there in the pouring rain, refusing to move. I didn't care who saw me. I didn't care what they thought. My body was shaking from the cold, from exhaustion. "Please, help my brother." As I whispered those words, my consciousness began to fade. My vision turned white. "Dad. Mom. I'm sorry. I couldn't protect him. And I didn't know if the water on my cheeks was rain or tears. Just then, "Mia." A familiar, commanding voice shook me from my haze. I didn't even have the strength to lift my head. "What are you doing to yourself?" A warm hand lifted my freezing body. "Madam Chairwoman." My voice was a raw whisper. "I'm sorry, but I don't know what else to do." "Tell me everything." Vanderbilt supported me and led me inside the building. She wrapped me in a warm blanket and gave me hot tea. "Now, slowly, tell me what happened." Shaking, I told her everything. My parents' death, the betrayal of my relatives, the bullying at Johnson's, the stolen wages, and Liam's decision to go to a group home. "It's my fault. I'm making my brother's life miserable." I broke down, crying again. "No, you're not," Vanderbilt said gently. "You fought so hard, all by yourself." "It was too heavy a burden for a 17-year-old girl to carry." She took my hands and held them tight. "You don't have to carry it alone anymore." At those words, I looked up. "You saved me last week. Now it's my turn to save you." "But I have nothing to give you in return." "That's not how it works." Vanderbilt smiled. "Life is a circle. We help each other. We are helped by others." Something that had been frozen inside me for a year slowly began to melt. "Please, help me." This time, the words came from my heart. "Please, help my brother." The moment I said it, a sharp light glinted in Vanderbilt's eyes. "I will. Mia, look at me." Her voice was kind, but beneath it was a strength like steel. "Now, I want you to just watch what I'm about to do." Vanderbilt called for her assistant, Charles Morgan. "Charles, is everything ready?" "Yes, Madam Chairwoman. It's all in place." Morgan pulled out a thick file. "Let's start with Johnson's Auto Repair." Vanderbilt's smile was as cold as ice. "I've already had that place fully investigated." I was shocked. "Investigated?" "I've been looking into them since the day we met." Vanderbilt's eyes flashed. I couldn't forgive them. People who would treat a wonderful young woman like you in such a way. The next morning, I felt a little better. Hesitantly, I went to Johnson's Auto Repair. "Where have you been?" Johnson was waiting for me at the entrance. His face was red with anger. "You take a day off without permission? You're not getting paid. Not a cent." "I'm sorry." I apologized quietly. My body still felt weak, but Vanderbilt had told me, You must go to the shop." Just then, 3 black luxury cars pulled up in front of the shop. "Hold on a moment." The car door opened, and Vanderbilt stepped out. "Not getting paid a cent, you say?" Her commanding voice echoed through the garage. Johnson turned, and his eyes widened. "Madam Chairwoman of Vanderbilt Parts!" Behind Vanderbilt, a lawyer, an accountant, and an official from the labor board stepped out. I shrank into a corner of the shop, trembling. Vanderbilt found me and gave me a reassuring nod. Then she turned back to Johnson. "What did you just say? No pay for an unauthorized absence?" Her voice was calm, but there was a fire behind it. "That's illegal. Even as a penalty, you can only deduct up to 10% of a day's wages. That's the law." Well, Johnson was speechless. "Mr. Johnson, we have a lot to discuss." Vanderbilt's smile was ice cold. "First, please take a look at this." Her assistant, Morgan, spread out a document. "These are Mia Smith's pay stubs for the last 6 months. They are significantly below the minimum wage." I clutched my hands, trying to stop them from shaking. "This is a violation of the Fair Labor Standards Act." The official from the labor board stepped forward. "We will be conducting an immediate investigation." "Well, wait a minute!" Johnson tried to protest, but before he could say another word, Morgan slammed another document on the desk. It was a photograph. It showed Johnson grabbing my hair, his hand raised to strike me. The moment of violence captured in vivid detail. I gasped. The pain of that day came rushing back. "One of our employees happened to be passing by," Vanderbilt said coldly. She had been investigating everything since that first day. "Assault and battery. A clear case," the lawyer announced quietly. The blood drained from Johnson's face. "And this is the final nail in the coffin." Vanderbilt held up a small disc. The security camera footage from the shop. "But it was supposed to be broken," I whispered. On the monitor, a clear image appeared. It was Johnson stealing the expensive part and hiding it in my locker. It wasn't me. The proof was right there, on the screen. "Theft and framing an employee. This is malicious." The lawyer calmly listed the crimes. "Furthermore, there's a suspicion of coercion." At Vanderbilt's signal, a man who had been standing in the corner of the office stepped forward. I recognized his face. He used to work at the shop. I can't stay silent anymore." He began to speak, his voice trembling. The way Johnson bullied her, it was horrible. He tried to make her drink motor oil. He framed her for theft. I saw it all. Tears streamed down my face. Someone had cared. I wasn't alone. "You traitor!" Johnson roared. "It's not betrayal. It's doing the right thing," the former colleague shouted back. Then, several other former employees appeared. They were all people who had been too afraid to speak up. "Mr. Johnson." Vanderbilt took a step forward. Her eyes were like frozen steel. "As of today, Vanderbilt Parts Manufacturing Incorporated is terminating all business with your company." No, you can't. We'll go bankrupt." "I imagine you will." There wasn't a trace of sympathy in her voice. "We do not tolerate companies that do not value their people. A business owner like you will be driven out of this industry." Vanderbilt looked at everyone in the room. "By the way, did any of you know?" Her quiet voice echoed. "Did you know how much Mia was supporting this entire operation?" I looked up in surprise. Morgan opened a thick file of maintenance records. "These are the records for the past 6 months. The number of mistakes is unbelievable." And yet, there had not been a single customer complaint. "That's because Mia stayed late every night after all of you had gone home and fixed your mistakes. The time cards and work logs proved it. She had never said a word. She just silently covered for everyone. A large tear rolled down my cheek. Someone had seen my work. Someone had recognized my efforts. My knees felt weak, and I almost collapsed. The other mechanics were stunned. Well, the girl they had tormented was actually the one who had saved the shop. A few of them looked at me. Their eyes were filled with guilt and regret. An hour later, Johnson's auto repair was shut down. Arrest warrants were issued for Johnson and the other main perpetrator. The other employees were all fired. But for those who apologized to me and cooperated with the investigation, Vanderbilt helped them find new jobs. One mechanic stood before me and bowed his head low. "I am so sorry." I just nodded silently. Afterward, I was taken to Vanderbilt's car. Back in her office, she took my hands in hers. "Mia, you endured so much. Madam Chairwoman." The tears I had been holding back started to flow again. "We are suing for $400,000 in back wages and damages." $400,000! I couldn't believe the amount. Or it's what you are owed. Considering the emotional distress and health issues, it's actually not enough. The lawyer added calmly. He said the amount could easily be covered by selling the company's assets and recovering the money Johnson had stolen. $400,000. With that, Liam and I could start over. "And Mia," Vanderbilt smiled gently, "this is where the real story begins. Come work for me." Vanderbilt's words were so warm. "But someone like me? This isn't charity." She squeezed my hands tightly. "Your skills are real. I guarantee it. And I will never let you go through something like that again." Tears of a different kind streamed down my cheeks. Relief. It felt like I could finally breathe properly. Are you sure?" "Of course. In fact, it would be a loss for the company to let a talent like you go to waste." Vanderbilt smiled like a mother. That evening, I returned to the old apartment where Liam was waiting. The moment I opened the door, he ran to me. "Mia, are you okay?" "Yes. You don't have to worry anymore." I hugged him tightly. "It's all over." "What about your job?" "I found a new one, at a really great company." I told him everything. About Elizabeth Vanderbilt, about Vanderbilt Parts Manufacturing, Inc., and about the $400,000 I would be receiving. Liam gasped. $400,000? "It's true." My voice was shaking. "So, you can go on your school trip." "Mia!" Huge tears fell from Liam's eyes. We just held each other and cried. The long nightmare was finally over. A few weeks later, I stood in the maintenance department of Vanderbilt Parts and wearing a brand new uniform. "I'm the new employee, Mia Smith. It's a pleasure to meet you all." As I spoke, warm voices came from all around. "Welcome, Mia. We've been waiting for you. Let's work hard together." There were no angry shouts or mocking laughter here, just the smell of oil and the pride of professionals. "Mia, let's see what you can do." The man who spoke was the department head, Charles Morgan. He was a veteran mechanic in his 50s with kind eyes. I nodded and placed my hand gently on an engine. A familiar feeling. I turned the key and focused all my senses on the sound. "There's a very slight, abnormal sound in the third cylinder." "Oh? You can tell?" Morgan's eyes narrowed. "Probably a misalignment in the valve clearance." As I continued my diagnosis, Morgan's expression changed to one of utter shock. "Unbelievable. Even a veteran like me would have missed a sound that faint." "My father taught me," I answered with a small smile. "I see. Your father must have been a wonderful mechanic." "Yes, sir," I answered with my chest puffed out. Here, no one would ever insult my father's name. That fact made me happier than anything else. My skills were quickly recognized throughout the company. A new maintenance procedure I proposed sent shockwaves through the department. With this method, we can reduce work time by 25%. It's true. Why didn't anyone think of this before? My idea was immediately adopted into the company manual. I even developed a unique diagnostic method to predict part wear in advance. When Morgan heard the report, he jumped out of his chair with excitement. This is an invention. We're filing a patent. A patent? We'll call it the Smith Diagnostic Method. A technique with my name on it. In disbelief, I looked up at the ceiling. Dad, are you watching? My days at Vanderbilt Parts were heaven compared to the hell of Johnson's auto repair. I started at 8:30 in the morning and left at 5:30 in the evening. I had proper breaks, and my salary was more than 8 times what it used to be. One day on my way home, I ran into some familiar faces on the train platform, my old basketball teammates. Mia, how have you been? They had all been worried about me. I'm working at Vanderbilt Parts now. What, that huge corporation? Their eyes went wide. That's amazing. You're amazing, Mia. Their warm words made my eyes well up. We were always worried about you. I didn't know what to say. They hadn't abandoned me after all. Young female mechanic develops patented technology. The day I was featured on the news, my phone rang. It was my aunt's voice, the first time I'd heard it in over a year. Her voice was as sweet as honey, a complete change from before. Mia, darling, I saw you on TV. You've become so successful. The voice on the other end was sickly sweet. I listened in silence. The same mouth that had insulted my father was now spewing words of praise. So, dear, I was hoping to ask you for a small favor. The moment my aunt tried to get to the point, I spoke quietly. I'm sorry, but is that all you called for? My voice was cold. What? We are not relatives. You made that very clear a year ago? I could hear her gasp on the other end of the line. I continued without pausing. Goodbye. Click. The call ended. The ties to my past were now severed. I glanced at the wall of the workshop. There was a photo of my parents smiling gently. Next to it, proudly displayed, were my patent certificate and several awards. I smiled at the photo. Just watch me, I whispered. I remember that rainy day, the day I threw away my pride and begged for help. If it weren't for that humiliation, I wouldn't be who I am today. Elizabeth Vanderbilt's words echoed in my mind. You don't have to carry it all alone. If you never give up, you will find a way. Today, a new day begins. I will put my heart into servicing the cars that carry precious lives. This is the life that Mia Smith has chosen. Mia, can you help with this adjustment? Yes, I'm on my way. The workshop is filled with the energetic voices of young mechanics. I have colleagues who support me and believe in me. I'm not alone anymore.